Hello, welcome to my lecture on Chapter 14 of the Career Counseling text on the topic of career development for K-12 students. Okay, so purposes of education. So why would a national government fund a free public education for all? Why would parents invest their own money to provide a private education for their children? Or why would young or not so young adults pay money and take out loans to finance a college education? Two things to consider. The bottom line is career preparation lies at the heart of education. So through education, people are prepared to be able to work jobs. So some big questions to ask and answer. If career development is at the heart of education, why not use the majority of time in school to train students for jobs? If career development is at the heart of education, what should schools be doing to assist students with career preparation and development? What do the students need? And who is responsible for meeting these needs? So there are some competencies from the American School Counselor Association, also known as ASCA. There are for career development standards and competencies, table 14.1 and Appendix D show those competencies. And then the National Career Development Guidelines are also shown in Appendix E. These are some competencies that are shown to be expected for schools. Looking at gaps, there is a gap between what students need and what they're getting with respect to career preparation and development, and between what they're doing and what they could be doing, and between what they are doing and what they could be doing as school counselors. So, I don't know about anybody that's watching this presentation, but for me, I didn't experience really any career counseling anything. I think maybe once I got called to the school counselor's office and I got asked what I wanted to do for school, I said, I don't know. And then I went back to my class. Like, it was very bland. There wasn't any personality testing. There wasn't any, these are different things that you could consider. There wasn't any kind of guidance. It was kind of just like, you're going to go to college and figure it out by yourself. So there's much more that school counselors could be doing, but I mean, there are some schools that do more than the average school, but the majority, from what I understand, don't do very much to be able to prepare students for education from the counseling perspective. So there are three primary directives for school counseling. Or direct services, excuse me. So school counseling core curriculum is where it helps 100% of students develop competencies in academic, career, and personal social development. 2, individual student planning, which helps 100% of students plan their individual academic and career futures. And 3, responsive services, where they help some students through counseling and consultation, which could be personal counseling or just plain career counseling. So these are 3 ways that school counseling can serve the student population. And looking at the school counseling core curriculum, this can involve classroom guidance lessons or targeted pullout groups where, hey, we're going to pull so many students into a group and we're going to talk about resumes today, or we're going to talk about planning for farming. If there's a group of kids that are in FFA, pull them all out to talk about farming opportunities and agricultural this, agricultural that. You can also have school-wide events, programs, and educational planning activities. So looking at elementary school basics for career, you're looking at increasing awareness, not only of themselves, but of the world of work and behaviors that are associated with success in school and work. So self-control, patience, taking turns, sharing, working together as a group in a team. But you absolutely want to be mindful always, whenever you're working with a client, of their developmental stage. Where are they? How old are they? What do they have going on? To be able to understand the extent to which you can engage in counseling or career counseling is in this case. So students in elementary school tend to be concrete thinkers. They're learning sexual stereotypes. Remember, they tend to be in super fantasy stage. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be the president. I want to be a race car driver. I want to They're having these kind of magical thoughts about things that they want to do, but maybe realistically, they really wouldn't want to do that once they get older. That's not where they're going to be at. But students in elementary school tend to have a limited understanding of themselves and narrow exposure to the world of work. Maybe they know what a lawyer is because their parents are a lawyer, or maybe because they watch a certain show with their parents, but they don't know a lot about work in the working world. They also don't understand the connection between school and work. And so there's room for helping them understand that, or help segue them into understanding that. Looking at activities that can be done in the elementary level, you could do guidance lessons involving career month visitors, offer stories about gender and jobs, like what different men, women, or non-binary persons do, what I like to do for fun, a collage. In terms of individual student planning, you could have the counselor participate in individual education plans for students, as well as coordinate transition planning. So that's one thing that my school did do. It was my elementary school took us on a field trip. It was to Wonderlick Farms. Being from Houston, I went to Klein High School my freshman year, and I went to Tice Elementary and Dory Intermediate. And we went from Tice to Wonderlick Farms next to Dory Intermediate. We got to go visit this farm, but it wasn't in the school. So I got to see the building I was going to go to, but I didn't get to go walk around and see what it was going to be like. And I think that might have taken away some of my anxiety about going to a new building I've never been in once I started sixth grade. So transition planning can be a really positive thing for students, with just reducing anxiety and helping them have confidence about transitions. Responsive services are also something that can be used, involving study skills, motivation groups, individual counseling as needed. Gottfredson strongly reminds us to pay attention to circumscription based on sex role stereotypes, right? Like only girls and moms and women can be homemakers. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. As we've seen over the course of the last century, gender stereotypes for roles in the home or roles in the working world have very much shifted, and a lot of opportunities have become open that weren't once open. So we don't want to limit the bounds of kids' job opportunities, of course. So school counseling core curriculum, you want to look at the self-awareness, career awareness again, and success behaviors. You can look at careers related to nature, sports. You could do a detective game where you ask how math could be used for any given job. Like as a counselor, how could you use math? As a teacher, how could you use math? If you're a lawyer, how could you use math? Or if you work as a cashier at HEB, how could you use math? Right. And so helping students understand that there is a connection between what they're learning and what they're one day going to potentially be doing. You can also have some school-wide events and programs that take place, and these could be from elementary school to middle school even, or even high school. Having a career day, having a career fair where there's booths set up. You could create a little mini society where there's like one of every kind of job available, and there could be interactions with students with people that represent each job field. You could do Super Science Day and look at STEM careers, which would be the science, technology, math, and education. And then the field trips, of course, kind of like what I was just mentioning, you take field trips to go to a bluebell factory. You could take field trips to go to a farm. You could take field trips to go to a bakery or other different kinds of places, or even to a college to walk around and experience what it's like to be on a college campus. In terms of educational planning, you can do college weeks, college visits, middle school visits, these different things I've kind of already mentioned. And as for middle school basics, this is going to have a focus on career exploration. So again, we want to pay attention to developmental considerations, looking at brain development. You know, kids are moving from concrete to more abstract thinking. The students are more self-conscious. They're comparing themselves to their peers. They're thinking about gender roles, sex roles. They're thinking about their socioeconomic status, and they're moving from fantasy thinking of, I want to be an astronaut, to I want to be a lawyer and I want to, you know, help the disenfranchised so-and-so, right? They're moving into more realistic career aspirations for themselves. Not that being an astronaut's not realistic, but instead of, you know, saying, I'm going to go to Jupiter, right? Like, okay, maybe not, because that's a really long ride. But students are more future oriented, and they're more likely to experiment with different versions of themselves. Like, ooh, I could be this, or I could be that, or I could be this. And they see that they can be self-made. They also tend to have a little bit more exposure to the world of work, just maybe based on the shows that they watch, or being able to understand more about what's going on. Students move from fantasy to reality checking. Again, like I said, looking at their abilities and interests, which may not necessarily align. So maybe they really like tattoos, but maybe that's artistic isn't really their thing. Being artistic isn't really their thing. So you want to help them understand the realities of job requirements, and help them with navigating experimentation of different identities that they foresee themselves potentially having. For classroom guidance lessons, you can do research projects on different career choices, look at role playing on sexism, what that could look like, introduce them to reassess the Holland Code and other career information. You could help them with developing educational development plans or doing transition planning on an individual basis, or even helping them with course selection, like what kind of classes, what kind of electives interest you? What are some things that maybe you'd want to do a job in someday, right? And then responsive services could look like doing study skills and motivation groups, or even doing individual counseling or making referral for individual counseling as needed if you're a school counselor, excuse me. Self-exploration could involve interest, aptitudes, and skills tests. There's the Murphy-Meisgeier type indicator for kiddos. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups all of a sudden. And the self-directed search career explorer. And there's also career awareness and success behaviors that can be employed as well to be able to build up middle schoolers' understandings of what they're working towards, which is the workforce, to become independent individuals that have some kind of job that is fulfilling, both personally and financially. Career cruising. This is an essential tool in middle and high schools that you can utilize. It requires an ID and a password, and certain school districts purchase a site license for that to be used. And in terms of school-wide events and programming, you can do a reality store or service learning projects where you encourage students to get out and explore different kinds of careers, like do a project on what does it take to be a lawyer, do a project on what it does it take to be a teacher, do a project on what does it take to be a counselor. And you can have different students present on different topics so that all the students get exposure to what that is. And they can rate themselves on their employability skills. How employable do they think that they are? You can also look at graduation requirements and post-secondary planning as part of educational development, as well as look at Gear Up programming, where you're helping them with early awareness and readiness, helping build literacy, helping build study habits, helping build different kinds of things to help them be successful later. As for high school, this is more looking at career planning, and you're looking at how students have reached that abstract thinking by this age. Typically, that's given that drugs, alcohol haven't impacted functioning, or they're not a late bloomer, or they haven't had traumatic brain injury or something else that might inhibit their brain's development. Students are starting to form rigid self-perception, so they view themselves more stringently in certain boxes. And they're really looking to get clear understanding of who am I and who do I want to be and who do I not want to be and what do I not want to be. And so there's also sometimes pressure that's coming just from family or from the peer or just from the environment. Oh my gosh, I'm graduating. I'm going to be out of high school soon. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to pay my own bills. Oh my gosh. And so there's this exceeding pressure to be successful and to figure it out. And they don't have maybe enough exposure to the world of work to fully have that clarity, to fully have that understanding. But something I try to make sure is clear with the clients I work with that are either in college and figuring it out, or they're about to graduate high school. It's like, you know what, you might go into college thinking you want to do one major and you might change it 3 times, because I did, and so did both my parents. And that's a really normal thing to not know what you want to do, and that's okay. In terms of high school basics, again, you want to look at abstract thinkers have a more sophisticated view of decision making, and they're able to see more of the pros and cons than the middle school and elementary school counterparts, just because of the brain development. And then when looking at the self-perception, you want to look at whether they're able to align interests, skills, abilities, and values, because that can lend to some coherence, some comfortability with the decisions that they're making. Because if I really value, I don't know, being artistic, and I choose a computer job, that I'm typing in data every day. That isn't really aligning any of my interests with that, because maybe I don't enjoy sitting in a computer all day long, and I'm not getting to draw, I'm not getting to look at art, I'm not getting to do something that I love. So you want to look at the alignment of those things to help with producing happiness with the career choice that they make or that they explore anyhow. Graduation also causes pressure, as I mentioned. And so the family influences, as well as the pressure to get out into the world of work. There might be job shadowing interviews that they go on. They might actually start working during high school. Maybe they're going to get a babysitting gig. Maybe they start working at Taco Bell or a pizzeria. Maybe they're working at Chuck E. Cheese with kids. Maybe they're going to work at a church in the nursery area, or maybe they're at HEB. I've had so many clients that have worked at HEB as a high school job for their first job. But they're getting different experiences, and they might redirect their aims or their goals or what they're interested in after having a couple of job experiences. Oh my gosh, I worked at HEB, I'm never working with food ever again, right? Like that kind of thing. Also with classroom guidance lessons, there's a couple opportunities to do portfolio building, college recruiter stuff. With individual student planning, you can help them look at courses and how to select those, and job shadowing experiences. And then post-secondary planning is just anything after high school. And then responsive services, that might be getting individual counseling as it's needed. So maybe there's depression, maybe there's anxiety, maybe there's bipolar disorder that's unmanaged, maybe there's addiction issues that need to be managed in order to be able to help a client get to the point of being able to look at career stuff. Because if there's instability occurring, or there's mental health that is unmanaged, that could very much so prevent a client from being able to care or prioritize career planning. Okay, so school counseling core curriculum, sadly, it's almost non-existent in high schools. As I mentioned, it wasn't available at mine. So with self-exploration, again, you want to look at the interests, aptitudes, and skills. You want to help with building career awareness about, hey, there's a lot that you can choose from. It's not just become a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. There's a lot out there. And then also helping them with looking at success behaviors that they can start building during high school to be successful afterwards. So having consistent attendance, being reliable, being persistent, building resume writing skills, etc. For freshman conferences, these are preferable to the more common but too late junior interview, which is what I think I got when I got called to my counselors. It was outside one of those metal buildings, like the temporary buildings, the T buildings, I think they called them. But yeah, starting off as a freshman, start thinking about these things rather than when you're a junior and you're about to leave. Now we're going to bring this up and bring it to your attention. The earlier you start, the better. Career fairs can also be great for building self-efficacy. Like, yeah, you're capable of becoming this. You can do this. And, confidence is something that teenagers often struggle with. And so you can provide them with opportunities to gain that confidence through career fairs with people that are encouraging, like, hey, yeah, if you want to be an astronaut, here's the way to get there. If you want to be a teacher, here's the way to get there, so on and so forth. And then for educational planning, again, there's different stages of post-secondary planning. And with transition services, you want to be thinking about students with disabilities as well as other students, not just students with disabilities. So you want to be thinking about job limitations. You want to be thinking about, maybe you've got clients that just have high anxiety. There's no disability diagnosis, but they have high anxiety. They struggle with change, or maybe they've got a trauma background and it's really hard to trust new environments. And so you just want to honor those things when your clients come to you with them to be able to assist them with transitioning effectively. Increased curricular demands also are something to look at. So the American Diploma Project, funded by Bill Gates, encouraged for states to adopt more rigorous high school graduation requirements that constitute college prep curriculum. And so that might be where they've got AP coursework available and they've got AP tests at the end of the year. And there's also the Common Core standards that have been implemented that are built on the American Diploma Project. 46 states have made a commitment to adopt these. and they've used many states have used these to guide the development of statewide curriculums like the Michigan Merit Curriculum. So there's a lot of pressure on kiddos to perform and to do well in school. As for educational development plans, these are written plans for how students will meet high school graduation requirements. So maybe they're struggling to follow the plan and maybe they need to write it out and they need to do something different. Maybe they need to do summer school. But basically it's just looking at, this is the order of coursework that you're going to be taking, and these are the kinds of classes you're going to need to take. As for post-secondary planning, so the predisposition stage, you're going to be answering questions like, what does it take for a student to become predisposed to pursuing post-secondary education? What can be done at the elementary, middle, and high school levels to support or develop their inclination to do whatever that post-secondary education is? As for the preparation stage, this isn't part of the Hosler model. It was added by Duggar. You're wanting to pursue post-secondary education is a lot different from being prepared to do so. Students who wish to pursue post-secondary education need to develop the skills and knowledge necessary to do so. 82% of ACT test takers expressed interest in going to college, but only 71% took the right courses, or 24% met for college readiness benchmarks. So this is interesting statistic too, 20% of high school graduates seeking entry into the military do not meet minimum score on the armed services qualifying test necessary to enlist. So what is that saying? It's saying that there's not enough preparation being done with students to make the vast majority of them be successful. For the search stage, students need assistance identifying and exploring various post-secondary options that fit with their career aspirations. There are many options for post-secondary education: military options, apprenticeships, college careers, trade schools, community colleges, all these different entities offer that. So it's not just limited to college only, right? As I've said in other lectures, but I'll say it again here. It's not just one option. You want to help clients find what works best for them. And for college education searches, here are a couple options for ways that you can search things related to college education. And then for post-secondary planning and the choice stage, this is where clients or high school students would choose where to apply. They're going to reach out to colleges. They're going to maybe pick a backup or like a safety college where it's like, okay, I'm going to apply here, apply there, just to make sure I get in somewhere, right? Maybe we all did that. I know I did that. And they choose which offer they want to accept. And I think it's important to also look at how not to choose a college and look at the factors that are important for each of them individually. Does fit, feel, fashion, flair, fiscal, location, all these different kinds of things. Do they matter to the client that's sitting in front of you? What's most important? Is there a rank order of what's most important? And then the last slide here for transition service. Ideal legislation requires written transition plan for all students in special education, which is different from an IEP. It should identify realistic and desirable post-secondary goals for training and education, employment, and independent living skills. So like I said before, it doesn't require a disability for someone to need transition services. Maybe they grew up in a home where their parents were absent, so they never really got taught those skills, or maybe they grew up in foster care system, or they were in and out of adoption or dealing with different issues that maybe they just never learned independent living skills or things related to employment. So transition services can be wonderful bridge for students to help them be more successful, get where they're trying to go, if you will. All right, thank you. That's my lecture on chapter 14. See you in the next one.